is near the canal. Another beautiful view of the same building here. Here you see water pools and flowers. This is also, all these pictures are from the same building. You see here huge trees, water plants. This is also from the same building. The reason I brought these pictures here is to tell you that having water canals and such plants in the building have reduced the usage of air conditioners in such big shopping malls. It has reduced the usage of air conditioners to 40%, and that is why I brought it, because such buildings are coming up and they're very eco-friendly. And let's look at this picture. It's a flower tower. It has got 380 flower pots or tree pots, and it's a building in Paris, and I'm sure such buildings are going to come up all over the world. We'll see such buildings soon. See how plants are planted within the building itself. Now let's have a closer look at this building. You can see pots near the windows and the balconies. So soon I think we'll be seeing such buildings in India also soon. Now this is a picture of modular living tiles. Such tiles are very popular, becoming popular nowadays. These tiles are eco-friendly and they don't require any soil or watering, or they don't require any fertilizers, sunlight. Just a little bit of humidity is enough for them to keep them alive. And such modular living tiles are set to purify the living rooms. And that's why these tiles are becoming popular. And these tiles are not made up of any toxic items or chemicals. That is a specialty of this modular living tiles. Another view of the same modular living tiles, in different setting. I'll take you to another picture here. This is known as cleaning living green wall, and it is you can find this wall in Edmonton Airport in Canada. And this wall has got 8,000 plants, and all are water plants, and they are put in hydroponic panels. And these panels are made of recycled plastics. And the plants selected to keep here on the wall, they are water plants, and they are they are water plants and they are air purifiers. So having such walls in the buildings or airports like this, it increases the oxygen supply and it purifies the air in the surrounding. So why I'm bringing all these pictures here, to tell you that man has not moved away from nature. He is with nature. He is friendly with nature. We are not moving away from nature. Though there are sad things happening, deforestation, global warming, but we are still with nature. So with these positive things, I would like to move on to the main topic. Now, a few questions to the participants. What is literature for an eco-critic? Can you just type the answers in your chat boxes? What is literature for an eco-critic? You might have attended many webinars on eco-criticism, but what is literature from the point of view of an eco-critic? Can someone read the responses here? Excuse me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, can you just read out the answers from the participant side?
Melvin has answered it's Eco Warrior.
Eco Warrior, okay. Anything else?
Ma'am, Mirror of Life. Conscious. Relationship between man and nature. Towards nature. And environment.
Lot of noise, please. Can you ask the participants to mute it?
I'm sure. Participants, please mute your audio and video, please. Disturbing others.
What is?
Okay. So
Okay. So the answer to this is, for an eco-critic, literature is something alive. Literature is a type of living, breathing being. It's not just printed pages inside a book. The literature is a type of living, breathing being. Literature is always in literature, and nature is what creates literature. This is what the eco-critics really believe. Now let's move on to the next question. What or who is an author for an eco-critic? Can you just share your views on this? You might have listened to many webinars on ecocriticism. I would like to have your responses in that chat box. Who or what is an author for an ecocritic? Can anyone read the answers?
yes, ma'am, sure, ma'am.
Yes.
So the answer is nature, human, one who concern for nature and environment.
Any other response?
Yes, ma'am, I'm looking forward. Yes, ma'am. The author is the advocate of nature. A person, and the another answer is a person who treats nature as a human being. Next one, all the romantic writers who wrote about nature, one who live in with nature, relating life with nature, one who cares about nature and human.
Cares about nature. Okay, fine.
Okay.
All these responses are really good, and actually from an eco-critic's point of view, an author is also an animal, a human animal, but still a being with a body. An author is both a product of human culture and a specimen of Homo sapiens made of meat and blood and bone. This is how the eco-critics describe an author. And let's move to the next question. Who or what is a reader for an eco-critic? I would like to know your responses in the chat box. Who is a reader for an eco-critic? When I said an author is an animal, so who is a reader?
Author is also a reader.
Huh?
Author is also a reader. Some of them said, Soumya has said author is also a reader in the chat section.
Okay.
And another answer is who loves nature.
Loves nature.
The reader is the human life form.
Okay. So what I got is, for an eco-critic, a reader is also an animal that reads. Actually, a reader reads with his nose, ears, eyes, and learned rationality. So an author is also an animal, and a reader is also an animal according to an eco-critic. So let's move on to the next question. What is nature to an eco-critic? Now, I've put 4 options here. The first option is nature is God. The B option is nature is a victim. C option, nature is a wild place for people to discover themselves. And D option says literally everything. Which do you think is the best? You can type your answers in the chat box. Nature is God, or nature is a victim, or nature is a wild place for people to discover themselves, or D, literally everything.
So
I hope I have answered.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you?
Thank you. Again, Shankar has asked, which project we do for negative ion?
Can you just read out the answers, ma'am? I can't hear. Yes? Can anyone read out the answers?
Ma'am, many of them selected option B, literally everything.
Literally everything. Yes, you're right. For an eco-critic, it is literally everything. In some of the literary texts, you will find that nature is portrayed as God. In some of the novels and poems, you'll find nature being portrayed as victim. In novels like Old Man and the Sea and Moby Dick, you will find nature is a wild place for people to discover themselves. But for an eco-critic, it is everything and more than this also. And we'll see, we'll talk about eco-criticism a little later. Let's have a flashback here. Let's see how nature has been dealt with in the past. And let's see how the classical poets portrayed nature in their works. In classical works, you'll find nature being portrayed as something hostile, something which is not fully trusted, and you will find that nature is fully controlled by the gods and exploited as a kind of resource to punish or favor human beings on earth. Let's take an example here. These are the lines taken from Virgil. It says, surely by dispensation of the gods and backed by Juno's will, the ships from Ilium held their course this way on the wind. Here the winds are favorable. That's why the ships from Ilium are sailing safely. And Juno, the god Juno is also favoring them. That's why they are able to sail safely. And all other gods are also showering their blessings. That's why the ships are sailing safely. So it is a clear proof that nature is being portrayed as a kind of puppet in the hands of gods. Let's take one more example. Horace. These are lines written by Horace. And in this, he talks about the winds, west winds, then the summer, spring, autumn. And then towards the end, he says, who knows if the lofty gods will add a span of tomorrows to what is summed today. The last two lines, it is a clear proof that gods are controlling nature. And when they want to punish the human beings, they make the weather or the climate conducive, and when they want to punish them, they make it stormy or they bring thunder, lightning, everything. When they want to bless them, they make the nature very very pleasant, and that's how they shower their blessings on them. So it is a clear proof that nature is a puppet in the hands of gods in the classical works. Now let's go to the Elizabethans. Elizabethans, actually, when they talk about nature, they talk about time also. And time is considered to be a kind of destroyer of nature, and man is portrayed as something immortal. And nature is something temporary for them, changing, fleeting, and unreliable. But there is a small difference. Nature is not portrayed as a kind of a puppet in the hands of gods in the case of Elizabethans. Now let's take an example from Shakespeare's work. It is a sonnet. You might have read these lines. It says, thou art both lovely and more temperate, rough winds to shake the darling buds of May, and summer's leaves have all too short a day. Here, the poet is comparing his friend's beauty to the darling buds of May. He says, darling buds of May are just temporary, momentary. They'll just fade away. But his friend's beauty is something immortal because he has recorded it in his sonnets. So nature is something mortal for the Elizabethans. Now let's take the Romantic poets. William Wordsworth has portrayed nature as teacher and a preacher in the poem The Tables Turn. In the poem Tintin Abbey, he portrays nature as an anchor, a nurse, a guide, and a guardian. Keats, actually, he loves nature. His love for nature is purely sensuous. In the poem called Ode to the Nightingale represents nature, and it is addressed as something immortal. This is how he addresses the nightingale, immortal bird. So nature is immortal for the Romantics. In the poem Ode on a Grecian Urn, he praises the artistic beauty of nature and he longs for eternal beauty. I'm just quickly rushing because you all know this, but I want to you to take a trip. Let's see what Shelley says in the Woe to the West Wind. Nature is portrayed as a kind of healer, a source of rejuvenation and inspiration. And these are the lines which tell you that. Drive my thoughts over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. So he sees, or he sees nature as a kind of a healer and a source of inspiration. Now, let's take the poem To a Skylark by Shelley. He looks at the bird skylark with wonder, and it is an object of wonder and admiration for him. And this is how he addresses the bird. He calls the bird blithe spirit from heaven. So skylark, which is a representation of nature as a whole, it is equated with heaven, something divine, something heavenly. Now let's talk about the 19th century poets. So here, let's take Walt Whitman's poem Song of Myself. Here, nature is put aside, and he brings man into the center, and he says, man, you can find the divine thing in man itself. He equates man with God. And that's why he says, I celebrate myself and sing myself. Another line goes like this, and nothing not God is greater to one than oneself is. So here he is equating man to God. And nature has nothing to do here, as we saw it in the case of the Romantic poets. And he says, I see something of God in the faces of men and women. I see God, and in my own face also. So he equates men and women to God, and he has not said anything about nature here. Let's go to the next poet, Hawkins. Now, if you take this poem, The Wind Hover, here he equates nature with God. He sees, or he portrays the bird as a symbol of Christ. He sees the bird kestrel as Christ. The majestic flight of the bird reminds him about Jesus Christ. Another poem called Pie Beauty, he talks about different shades found in the objects of nature, talks about different shades of cows, butterflies, trees, everything. And then he says, he fathers forth whose beauty is past change. So God has created all these beautiful things, and it is past change. It is something immortal. So let us praise him. This is how he portrays nature. Now, Matthew Arnold. For Matthew Arnold, nature is something pure, beautiful, unchanging, perfect, and sublime. Whereas mankind for him is something fallen and miserable. Let's take this poem by Matthew Arnold. In this poem, he expresses his wish that he should be placed near the window when death approaches him. He doesn't wish for anything else. He wishes to be near the window and look out through the window and enjoy the natural beauty outside. That is his only wish. He doesn't ask for anything else. Let me read out the last two lines. The world which was here I was born, the world which lasts when I am dead. These lines tell that man on earth is something mortal for Matthew Arnold, and the nature which he is enjoying looking out through the window is something immortal, because it was there when he was born, and it is going to be there after his death also. So let's take another popular poem by Matthew Arnold, Dogger Beach, you all might have read. Now here in this poem, the shore is calm, the tide is full, there's moonlight, everything is pleasant, the night air is sweet, and the poet invites his wife to come to the window and enjoy the beautiful sight. But the beautiful sight reminds the poet about the eternal note of sadness in it. It tells nature is something serene, sublime, but man is something fallen, and there is no love, no joy in man's life. His life is full of sadness, struggles. So the beautiful scene, the beautiful sight which nature offers does not give him happiness altogether. It reminds him about the eternal note of sadness for him. So this is about Matthew Arnold. Now let's talk about Thomas Hardy's poem, The Darkling Thrush. He wrote this poem at the end of the century, and he wrote it in 1900 at the end of the year. And
Ma'am, you are not audible.
now,
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
yes, now is
You're
it
audible
okay?
now. Yes, ma'am, now it's okay.
So in the poem called The Darkling Thrush, he talks about winter, it is snowing, and the whole site is very gloomy. And he's also sad, but suddenly he hears a beautiful song sung by the bird thrush, and he says, in a full-hearted ever song of joy illimited. The bird sings with full heart, and it is full of joy and illimited. It is unlimited. The joy is unlimited. And he says, this happy good night air, some blessed hope whereof he knew, and I was unaware. The bird, which represents nature on the whole, is a kind of brings a kind of blessed hope. But he says, I am unaware of such joyful things. I'm unaware of such blessed hope. Here, the poet represents man, and the bird represents nature on the whole. So here, the bird or the nature is portrayed as a source of joy, as a source of hope. Let's take another poem by Ted Hughes. He also talks about the bird thrushes, but he wrote this poem another 40 or 50 years later after Thomas Hardy wrote. He has portrayed the same bird in a different way. He says terrifying. He describes the bird as something terrifying. And he says the bird has a poised, dark, deadly eye. And he says more coiled steel than living. The bird looked like a machine than a living thing itself. So you can see the vast difference. Here, Thomas Hardy has portrayed the same bird as a source of joy and a source of hope here. And here it is totally different. The bird is portrayed as something terrifying. So I just wanted to bring the comparison here. Now let's talk about the transcendentalists, American transcendentalists. For them, they believe in the holistic power of nature. They bring the nature to the center, and they feel that being with nature, man can realize God, or man can see God or feel God. Through nature, they can communicate with God. And this is what Emerson says in his work, Nature. In the woods, all mean egotism vanishes. I am part or particle of God. So when he is with, or when he's with nature in the woods, he feels this. He's able to feel the presence of God. Another quote goes like this: it is in nature that man can find what he needs. It is where God speaks to him. So only when man comes in a communion with nature, he can speak to God. That's what they believe. Now let's see what Thoreau has said in Walden. He says, I went to the woods because I wished to be deliberately to front only the essential facts of life. To him also, being with nature, only when you are with nature, you can realize the essential facts of life. Only when you're in the woods or deep forests, you can communicate with God. So they put nature in the center, and they feel that through nature they can communicate or feel God. So this is what American transcendentalists believed. Now, let's see what Robert Frost has to say. I've chosen Robert Frost here because Robert Frost has portrayed nature in different hues in different poems. He believes that nature and the world of man are totally different. They can go parallelly together, but they cannot meet. And that's what he has portrayed in almost all of the poems. But he's done it in a different way in different poems. Let's take the first poem, My November Guess. Here, he's walking with a lady. The lady is sorrow personified as a lady, and it is November month. It is autumn. The winter is going to start, and excuse me, there's a lot of disturbance here. So he's taking a walk with a lady. The lady is no one but sorrow itself. So when he's walking with that lady, he sees the autumn season, the ugliness of autumn season. But when he's walking with sorrow, he sees joy and beauty also along with it. So he sees joy, sorrow, beauty, ugliness in nature. And in another poem, let's take another poem, Reluctance. Reluctance, he talks about summer season. Summer season in Western countries, it's a pleasant season. And it's joyful, bright, very bright in Western countries. But he sees a kind of, he feels a kind of reluctance when when he experiences the sights in summer season. Why? He feels that all these beautiful things which we see or which we experience during summer season, it is just going to vanish. And we as human beings should accept gracefully. And accepting the fact brings a kind of reluctant feeling in him. So in these two poems, he sees joy, sorrow, beauty, and ugliness in nature. Let's move on to the next poem called Sand Dunes. Here, on one hand, we have
Excuse me, Dr. Vidya, can you unmute your mic?
okay. Is it okay now?
Yes. Okay, continue.
So the boy has a lens in his hand. He tries to focus the sunbeams, and he puts it on or focuses it on the monkeys, and it creates a kind of burning sensation on them, and they feel really confused. They don't know what is happening and where is this coming from. And these monkeys keep watching the boy with the lens, and suddenly one monkey snatches this lens and he runs away. And the monkeys just snatch the lens here and there, and they look out, what is it? And when they find it is of no use for them, they just throw it, break it. Now here, Robert Frost portrays the gulf between nature and man. Man, his thinking is different. The monkeys, which represent nature as a whole, their lifestyle is different. Monkeys, they just think about their survival. They don't think about anything else. But man, on the other hand, is destructive. So he says there is a gulf between nature and man, and that is what he's trying to portray in this poem. Now let's take the next poem. Stopping by Woods, another poem which you all must have read it. Here the poet talks about the beautiful scene over there, the frozen pond. It gives a pleasant, beautiful sight to the poet. But he says, I have got a lot of promises to make and miles to go. So this reminds about the disconnectedness between man and nature. Man wants to be with nature, but he cannot be with nature because his lifestyle is totally different from. Now let's take another poem, To Look at Two. This again, it tells that there is a big wall or gap between man and nature. Here in this poem, a young couple take a walk in the evening, and at one particular stage they stop because it is dark, and they find that there is a wall with barbed wires, and they feel they cannot proceed with their walk because it is dark. And suddenly they see a door there, and the deer comes near them and looks at them, stares at them, but the deer is not scared. But these two people are scared because it is dark, and they feel that crossing the wall will be dangerous for them. And that deer actually vanishes after some time. Another deer comes, and he looks at them with the same bright eyes. There's no fear in his eyes. He seems to convey a message. It goes like this: are you both people living? There is no sign of living in you people. You don't seem to be living at all. And this is a message he conveys through his looks, and he also vanishes. Actually, here I would like your attention. I would like to draw your attention here. There's a wall between them, the human beings, and the deers. The young couple is really, they are reluctant to cross the wall. Here, the animals are reluctant to cross the wall and go that side. So poet is actually trying to say that man's world is totally different. Nature is totally different. They can just walk parallelly together. They cannot meet or unite together. Another poem called Tree at My Window is talks about the same concept of Robert Frost. He has a tree near his window, and at night he closes the window, but he doesn't draw the curtain. He doesn't want to draw the curtain and have a kind of partition between him and the tree. So he wants to see the tree always. So he doesn't want to draw the curtain. And he feels that the tree has also faced a lot of problems like strong winds, snow, summer, scorching sunlight outside. The same thing has happened to him also. There is a similarity between him and the tree outside. He too has faced a lot of struggles, a lot of problems, but there is a difference. The tree outside, his struggles are external, whereas the poet's struggles are internal. So that is the difference he draws and tells that man and nature are totally different. They both cannot come together. They can just walk parallelly together, and they cannot come together. One more poem by Robert Frost is Birches. In this poem, he talks about the beautiful things. He portrays nature as a beautiful thing, a horrifying thing. He talks about nature's mysterious things also, and he expresses his love for nature also. He brings in ice storms, which tell you about the horrifying things about nature. Then the snow settles down, the sunbeams pass through the ice cubes, and you can see multicolored beams popping out. So that brings beauty, and he admires that also. So he sees horror and beauty in nature. And another line I have put here, and life is too much like a pathless wood. Human life is as mysterious as a pathless wood. So nature is something mysterious, and as well as man's life is also mysterious, he says. But in the same point, he expresses his love for nature also. He says, Earth is the right place for love. I don't know where it is likely to go better. So Earth is the best place. No other place can be a better place to live, he says. Another poem, Spring Pools. Here spring is a season of joy and flowers, fruits, everything. But he relates spring to darkness, because he feels that all the beautiful things which we see in spring is just momentary. It is going to just pass away, and that brings a kind of gloomy and dark feeling in him. So here nature brings in a kind of gloomy and darkness to the poet. Now let's take Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson also portrays nature in varied hues. In this poem, What Mystery Pervades a Well, she portrays nature as a stranger, and she says, the more you go closer to nature, the more confused you will be. That's what she says. But nature is a stranger yet, and that those who know her less, the nearer her they get. Another poem by Emily Dickinson. Here, she talks about the pine tree near her window. She actually finds nature a kind of substitute for heaven. And this is a beautiful example for that. The pine tree near her window is like a fellow of the royal. This is how she addresses the pine tree, and she calls it infinity, something mortal, something heavenly. Nature is what we see. This is another beautiful poem by Emily Dickinson. She says, nature is what we see. Nature is what we hear. Nature is what we know. So in the last two lines, she says, so important our wisdom is to her simplicity. So it is not easy, it is not possible to understand. We can see, we can hear, we can try to know what nature is, but it is very difficult to understand nature. So important our wisdom is to her simplicity. Our minds cannot understand or grasp the mysterious things in nature. That's what she says. Another poem by Emily Dickinson. It is titled as There is a Certain Slant of Light. In this poem, she talks about winter afternoons. Winter afternoons bring a kind of heavenly hurt, sealed despair, and a kind of imperial affliction to her. And when the winter afternoons end, she feels she has glimpsed death itself. These are the lines in which she expresses her views. When it goes, it is like the distance of the look of death. When the winter afternoons go or pass away, she feels she has seen death itself. So nature is something gloomy. She looks at nature with a gloomy outlook. Another poem, a beautiful poem by Emily Dickinson, A Bird Came Down the Walk. Here, there's a small bird, it comes and it kills an insect and eats it. And then it drinks dewdrops which are found on the grass. And then it moves and hops on and sits on a wall. And a beetle comes and the bird allows the beetle to pass. And suddenly the bird is aware that the poet is standing nearby, and the bird becomes a little scared, and the poet comes forward to offer a crumb or something, breadcrumbs to the bird, but the bird refuses to take it, and the bird flies off. This is how the poem ends, and it tells man's alienation from nature. This is how she ends the poem. I offered him a crumb, and he unrolled his feathers and rode him softer home. The bird doesn't bother about what the poet is offering. So it just kills the insect and eats it and just goes off. It is not bothered about the poet who's standing next to him. So it brings a kind, the poet is trying to tell that man's world is totally different and nature is totally different. There's a wall between them. But There are poems where Emily Dickinson admires nature also. Here in this poem, I taste a liquor never brewed. In this poem, the poet tastes a liquor, and the ingredients of this liquor are the beautiful objects of nature. She drinks it, she enjoys it, and she says, I shall but drink the more. She wants more and more. And finally, she's totally drunk. And this is how the poem ends, to see the little tippler leaning against the sun. The poet is totally drunk, and she leans like a tippler on the sun. She doesn't lean on a wall or a lamppost. She leans against the sun, and this is how the poem ends. So this shows her admiration for nature. Another poem, A Light Exists in Spring by Emily Dickinson. She sees light, joy in spring, of course, and she says, man's scientific inquiry cannot help man to understand nature. Man can just feel nature. He cannot use his scientific inquiry to understand nature. Then later on, when the spring afternoons pass away, she says it gives a quality of loss. It creates a feeling of loss, and it affects her a peace. That's what she says. It affects her peace of mind when these spring afternoons pass, because she feels that these beautiful things which we see in spring are also temporary, not permanent. So that creates a kind of a feeling of loss in her. So we have taken a flashback about how nature is portrayed by different poets in different periods. Now let's talk about eco-criticism. Eco-criticism, actually, it is derived from the word okios, a Greek word called okios, which means home. It was coined by William Rocket in 1978, and it was popularized by Cheryl Glotfelty in 1990s. And it is called eco-criticism in Hues and green studies in UK. It is also called as green cultural studies. We call it eco-poetics also, and we call it environmental literary criticism also. Now, what is the definition of criticism? We started with criticism, isn't it? How will you define criticism? This is how the definition goes. Let me concentrate on Lawrence Buell here. He says, eco-criticism is a study of the relationship between literature and the environment. But he adds one more point, which is missing here. He says, it is not just talking about the relationship between literature and the environment. It should be conducted in a spirit of commitment. A kind of committed feeling is required to study this. So this is how Lawrence Buell describes or defines eco-criticism. Now, when we talk about eco-criticism, these are the few terms which you need to know. Egocentric means the focus is on one individual. Anthropocentric, this term focuses on mankind as such. And biocentric, it brings all the human beings and all the living beings together, and the focus is on all the living creatures on Earth. Ecocentric, it focuses its full attention on the whole planet. So these are the few terms which you need to know when you talk about eco-criticism. Now, we have come to a new term called urban natural roosting. So this word was coined by Ashton Nichols. He has coined this word in his work Beyond Romantic Eco-criticism toward urban natural roosting. What do you mean by this word or term urban natural roosting? It is a combination of two words, urban and natural. That is human culture and wild nature. He says just the deep forest, thick forests, seas, rivers are not part of nature. In cities also we have gardens, we have trees, we have parks. That also is part of nature. So wild nature plus human culture constitute nature as such. So you cannot just say what we see in city is not nature at all. The sky, the trees, the plants which we see in cities is also part of nature. So a very good example which you can for urban natural roosting is the poem composed by William Wordsworth. The poem is titled like this, composed upon Westminster Bridge. He wrote this poem in 1802. In this poem, he talks about the London city, not a village. He talks about the London city. He talks about the morning, early morning, silent, the morning is silent. There's no one there. He talks about the ships, towers, domes, theaters, temples. And he talks about the fields and the sky, bright sky there. And the air is smokeless. And he talks about the valley, rock, hill, all these things. He doesn't just talk about the beauty in the countryside. He's talking about London city with all the towers, domes, theaters, which we don't find it in the countryside. So this is an example for urban natural roosting, where he talks about both the fields, valleys, rocks, etc. And towards the end, he talks about the Thames River also. The Thames River glided at his own sweet will. And towards the end, he says, "Dear God, the very houses seem asleep." Houses seem to be asleep because there's no outside. It's early in the morning. And this is how he describes London city with both. We have the trees, valleys, mountains, etc. And on the other hand, we have towers, ships also. So it is a beautiful example for urban natural roosting. Timothy Morton is another eco-critic. His work, Ecology Without Nature, Rethinking Environmental Aesthetics, is another beautiful book which you can refer for if you are doing a research on ecocriticism. He says, nature is both the set and the contents of the set. Now, if you take a house, you might find indoor plants, outdoor plants. You might have an indoor plant inside. He says that is also part of nature. It represents nature. And the plants outside, they are also part of nature. And they together constitute the whole set. And together they form nature also. The indoor plant which you see inside, that is also part of nature. And the outdoor plants which you see, that is also part of nature. And when you put both indoor and outdoor plants, they constitute nature also. So he says, both the set and the contents of the set is nature. And he describes nature like this. Nature is a ghost at the never arriving end of an infinite series. So nature is a kind of, it is a chain. It is infinite. You can keep adding. It consists of both living and non-living things. You can keep on adding things to nature. So it is an infinite series, he says. The last third point, he says, not just an object. Nature is not just an object of beauty and admiration. Earlier we saw poets and writers talking about the beautiful things about nature, but he says nature is not just an object of beauty and admiration. It has its own ugliness. It has its own negative aspects also. We have to accept both the things and portray nature as it is. We should not exclude the ugliness or the realities as such and portray nature as the earlier poets did. Now let's talk about ecofeminism. It was coined by the French writer Françoise Aubon, and you can find this term in her book, Le Feminisme au le Monde. So what does ecofeminism analyze? It analyzes the problems of nature. It analyzes the problems of women also. So it is not just a single movement, it is a combination of two movements, women's movement, and on the other hand, we have movement of ecological restoration. So it is a combination of both the movements. What does it believe? What does it believe? It believes that human beings are a part of natural world and all life on earth are intertwined with each other. Now, what are the causes of problems? Ecofeminism, this particular theory, it advocates that androcentrism and patriarchy, these two things are the cause for all the problems on this earth. Androcentrism, the domination of man over other creatures. Patriarchy means domination of man over the women. So these two things are the main causes for all the problems. And what is that they want to achieve? What is their goal? Their goal is to eradicate androcentrism and patriarchy. So they feel that if these two things are removed or eradicated, all the problems will be sorted out. So if you want to apply this ecofeminism in the literary works, I would say Salman Rushdie's Shalimar the Clown is the best example. Here in this novel, Kashmir Valley is being exploited by the terrorists. The Indian army is there and US also intervenes, and the natural resources, the Kashmir Valley is being exploited, and because of the war and terrorist activities, it is losing its beauty. On the other hand, the protagonist, Booni, she is being exploited by her husband, and another US ambassador comes in, and he actually tempts her by saying that he will give her proper training to become a good dancer, and she elopes and joins Max. She leaves her husband and she goes there with her dreams to become a good dancer. But there, Max exploits her and she becomes pregnant and she delivers a baby. And the baby is taken away by Max's wife. And she returns to her village thinking that her husband will accept her and the village people will accept her. But it doesn't happen. The husband decides to kill her, but he is stopped by her father and her father-in-law. So here, but towards the end, he waits till her father and father-in-law are dead. He comes and kills Booni. He doesn't stop with that. Before killing Booni, he goes and kills Max first, and then comes back to Kashmir to kill Booni. He doesn't stop there. He says, "I will kill the child also." That's Booni has a daughter also who's taken care by Max. She's given education in US. She's brought up there, and he decides that the child should also be killed. So he's not just stopping by killing Booni. He decides to kill the child also, but towards the end, he is killed by the Booni's daughter Kashmira towards the end. Here, what we see is that the protagonist, the Booni, the heroine of the novel, is being exploited by men. On the other hand, Kashmir Valley is being exploited by the terrorists, Indian army, and there are wars. There are many places being blasted by the bomb blasts. So natural resources as well as the woman or the protagonist, Booni's, both are being exploited. And this is a beautiful line which I've selected from the novel, which is a beautiful example for ecofeminism. She was the earth and she means Booni. She was the earth and the earth was the subject, and he had grabbed it and sought to bend her destiny to his will. So he actually is Shalimar the Clown, Booni's husband. So Booni is being exploited, at the same time Kashmir Valley is being exploited the way a woman is exploited. So this novel is a beautiful example for ecofeminism. Now let's talk about eco-spirituality. What does eco-spirituality talk about? It advocates sacredness of nature, earth, and the universe. Now, one more word has been added here. We talked about nature, earth. We are adding universe here. Eco-spirituality adds the word universe here. So, eco-spirituality says there's some kind of holiness in nature, earth, and universe. And it advocates quest for life. The word spirituality doesn't mean that you have to escape from life, escape from responsibilities, renunciation. No. you should live. That is what eco-spirituality says. And just living is not enough. Living in harmony with the universe, that's what eco-spirituality advocates. So live and let live is what eco-spirituality says or advocates. And it also tells that the supreme power is not a transcendental reality, but is the supreme cause and part of creation. Earlier we saw that to realize God, we have to be in communion with nature. Only when we are with nature, we can speak to God. No, here the concept changes. It says that God is not something beyond reality or transcendental reality. It is the source of creation, of course, and it is part of the creation as such also. So here, eco-spirituality differs in its concept. It advocates to realize the integrated order outside the confined territory of narrow human life. So what is the meaning of this? One should not confine about talking about or concern about himself or herself. He should connect with the neighbors, he should connect with the society, and he or she should connect with each and every object of nature or universe. That is what eco-spirituality talks about. It says come out of your confined territory and connect with yourself with all other creatures, living and non-living things also. The last one, it says it is the spiritual duty of man to extend care, love, respect, and meaning. So I want you to focus on the word spiritual. It is the duty of man to take care of nature, okay. But it says it is the spiritual duty. Man should take little more or should have more commitment, with more dedication. He should extend his love, care, respect, and meaning towards nature. This is what eco-spirituality advocates. The best example to explain eco-spirituality is Gopinath Mohanty's High Tide, Ebb Tide. Here, Tarun Roy goes on a pilgrimage to Puri, which is in Odisha, with his family members, not just to get away or escape from life. He wants to get away from the mechanical life he's leading in Kolkata, and to refresh himself, he takes up a pilgrimage with his family members to Puri. And when he comes out of this house or home, he is able to connect with everyone, whomever he meets. Earlier, he was concerned about the welfare of the family members, but now when he is out, he is able to connect and share and love everyone he meets. That's what eco-spirituality advocates. And the same thing happens with his wife also. She has been showing her love and affection to her family members. Now, when she comes out, she feels she's an eternal mother. She's able to shower her motherly love to everyone, whomever she sees. There is a lot of change in them. They are able to expand their connectivity. And this is what Tarun Roy realizes during his pilgrimage. I've picked out the line. He says, he belongs everywhere. He is powerful. He is necessary. He belongs everywhere means he is able to connect with everyone, whomever he meets. He is powerful. He says he feels that he has become powerful after connecting with everyone. He is necessary. He feels that he is an important in the work, in the creation of God. It is not just an unwanted. He is not just an unwanted piece of an object in this on this earth. He has some purpose, and he is very, very important. He is going to play an important role in this world. That's what he realizes. And his wife Kanti Moi, when she sees the sunset, this is what she feels. Everything appeared newborn, tender, mingled together, inseparable. So she's able to connect with the sunset, and with all the human beings she comes across. See how she feels. She feels newborn, rejuvenated when she sees the sunset. Another beautiful lines from the same novel. This is what Tarun Roy feels when he looks at the seashore. The sea was forcing its will on him. It would not let him think of his own affairs, his problems, would not allow him to feel dejected, to accept old age. Now he is not thinking about his own affairs. He's able to think about others' problems also. and he's ready to accept his old age. And we can assume or we can guess that he goes back rejuvenated and starts his work afresh. Now, what should man do according to the principles of eco-spirituality? The first thing is live in this world. Don't escape from the world. Eco-spirituality says live in this world. Live happily. Don't escape. Next one is experience the complex natural phenomenon. As far as human life is concerned, we have birth, death. We have all types of different types of seasons with different hues. Accept the complex phenomena and live, experience it and live happily. That's what eco-spirituality says. And the third point is understand human-induced problems. It also advocates that we should understand what are the problems we have created for the other creatures and the ecosystem. That is another point which eco-spirituality talks about. It also asks or requests to safeguard the fellow creatures and the universe. Not man should not take care of or safeguard himself. He should take or safeguard the fellow creatures also. Fellow creatures means all animals, plants, everyone. And another word has been added, fellow creatures and the universe. Safeguard the universe. You may ask, how can we safeguard the universe? It depends upon the individual, your religious beliefs, your culture. You can safeguard the universe according to your beliefs, your religious beliefs, your own mental makeup. You can do it. How I cannot discuss right now because it depends upon the individual. Another thing which eco-spirituality advocates is, it says reorient human consciousness towards the spiritual dimension of ecology. It is asking us to have or develop a kind of spiritual outlook towards ecosystem. Just looking at the problems of ecosystem, safeguarding the creatures is not enough. We should develop a kind of spiritual outlook. For example, when you enter a temple or a church, you have a feeling that it is something sacred, something holy. The same kind of feeling you should have when you think about earth, when you think about nature, when you think about your home. So that kind of spiritual outlook we need to develop. That's what spirituality says. Now, what is biopolitics? Quickly, I'll discuss within 5 minutes and end this. This word has been coined by Rudolf Killen. He was a political scientist and he wrote a 2-volume work called The Great Powers in 1905. He coined this word biopolitics. Biopolitics is an intersectional field between human biology and politics. There are 2 different fields, human biology and politics. So it is the study of the intersectional field which these 2 disciplines form. Another definition he gives, the definition of biopolitics goes like this. It is a political wisdom taking into consideration the administration of life and a locality's populations as its subject. See, every state has some political leaders or the rulers. They formulate schemes and policies for the welfare of their population, for their public, for their citizens. All the policies and schemes they make, they have some kind of impact on the public life. So biopolitics is the study of these things, study of these influences or impact on the human life, of the policies which the political leaders or the rulers make. And this is the definition given by Michel Foucault. He says the political wisdom should ensure, sustain, and multiply life and put life in order. But sometimes the policies and schemes which the political leaders or the rulers advocate have negative impact also. It is not necessary that they put everything in order. They have negative impacts also. You will come across a word called biopower when we talk about biopolitics. Biopower is the means or the tools used to put biopolitics into work in a society. So biopolitics we saw how to, uh, the best definition for biopolitics is given by Michel Foucault. There are many definitions given, but I found that this definition is more apt. I've taken this definition for explaining what biopolitics is. It says it is the study of the impact of social and political power over the human life. You have society on one hand, you have political power on the other hand, political system on the other hand. Both together influence human life. So how do they influence what? How are they influencing? Biopolitics makes a study of it. And the best example for applying this particular theory is Rabindranath Tagore's Muktadhara. I'll take another 2 minutes to complete this and then I'll stop. Here in this play, Muktadhara is a waterfall flowing from Uttarakud to Shivtarai. Uttarakud is placed on the mountain slope and Shivtarai is located in the plain area. And this waterfalls, Muktadhara flows from Uttarakud and it irrigates the lands of Shivtarai. And King Ranjit is the king. He rules Uttarakud and he also shows a kind of domination over the people of Shivtarai also. There's another character called Vibhuti. He is the engineer who builds a dam to stop the flow of the waterfall called Muktadhara. And once he completes the construction of dam, the water flow or the water supply is stopped and the people of Shivtarai, they don't get water. And this construction of dam becomes a kind of advantage for Ranjit to impose his imperial rule on the population of Shivtarai. And we have another character, Abhijit. He is the crown prince. He is totally against the construction of the dam. He doesn't want to stop the flow of Muktadhara. He wants to set it free so that the people of Shivtarai also get water and they're able to irrigate their fields. We have another character called Dhananjay. He's a kind of a statesman and he gives practical advice to the people of Shivtarai. And he tells them what are their rights. They should raise their voice against the rulers. He tries to educate them and awaken a kind of, brings in a kind of awakening in them. So we see two different forces working. We have Ranjit, who is the ruler. We have Abhijit, he is also the crown prince, but they work on two levels. Ranjit has a kind of imperial, or imposes a kind of imperial rule on Shivtarai, and he constructs the dam to exploit them. Whereas Abhijit, he wants to break this dam and release Muktadhara so that the people of Shivtarai get water. So these two people are working at different level. He's destructive, he's constructive, he's thinking about the welfare of the people. Now, Vibhuti and Dhananjay, they are the representatives of the society. Vibhuti actually he constructs the dam and he tries to stop the flow of the waterfall so that the people of Shivtarai are suffer and so that the king Ranjit can have more power on them. So he's a symbol of destructive power. And on the other hand, Dhananjay is trying to educate the people of Shivtarai. He tells them what are their rights, what should they do. So he is a constructive force having positive impact on the society. So we see two different forces, society as well as the political system. They both influence the life of the people of Shivtarai in different ways. And towards the end, we see Abhijit, he goes and breaks the dam, and finally the waterfall is set free, and the people of Shivtarai get water supply. And when Abhijit breaks the dam, he also dies. He's taken away or carried away by the forceful currents of the waterfall. So he sacrifices his life for the sake of or the betterment of Shiptarai. So we have society and the political system having or influencing the life of the people of Shiptarai. Two different forces influencing. So I feel if you want to apply this biopolitics theory, this is the best story you can take as an example. Now, I come to the last section. I've spoken about romantic poets, eco-criticism, and so many things. I would like to ask you a few questions. What is the difference between romanticism and eco-criticism? The second question is, what is the difference between romanticism and transcendentalism? The third question is, what is eco-criticism and how it differs from eco-spirituality? The fourth one is, what is the difference between feminism and ecofeminism? Can you just type your answers in the response, type your responses in the chat box? First question, what is the difference between romanticism and eco-criticism? What is this? There's a slight difference. Can anyone read out the answers or the responses?
So there are responses coming. Romanticism is the appreciation and admiration of nature.
Okay. Eco-criticism?
They're writing. Romantic poets wrote on nature because of aesthetics.
Okay. What about eco-criticism?
Romanticism shows an aesthetic beauty of nature.
Fine, fantastic.
One response is appreciation and price, and other is the relationship between literature and nature.
Yes, but there is the difference between romanticism and eco-criticism is that romantic poets, they just glorify nature, they equate nature with something divine, but eco-criticism focuses on the ugliness, the negative sides of nature also. It says nature is not just an object of admiration. It has its ugly sides also, and the problems also. We need to focus on that also. So that is the difference, yeah. The next one is, what is the difference between romanticism and transcendentalism? We
So again,
discussed
some
about
responses is there with eco-criticism too. While eco-criticism is the in-depth study of relationship and its value upon environment and the ecosystem.
exactly.
And another response to romanticism only defines about beauty and benefit of nature. Eco-criticism is one which critique nature.
Okay.
And another response, eco-criticism treats nature as humans. Eco-criticism.
What about the second question? Let's take the second question: romanticism versus transcendentalism.
Nobody has responded on that. So somebody says romanticism is admiration for nature and eco-criticism as concern for nature and environment. And no responses to yes. Transcendentalism is finding one's own self, staying close with nature.
Yes. See, romanticism sees romantic poets, they see the godliness in the objects of nature. Whereas transcendentalists slightly differ. They say that to speak or to communicate with God, we need to be in communion with nature. Only when we are with nature, we can realize God, or we can have a kind of self-realization. So they put nature in the center, and they say that through nature we can experience God, or we can come to a kind of self-realization. So there's a small margin, which differentiates these two. What about the third question, eco-criticism and eco-spirituality?
No responses regarding that. People are talking about romanticism and eco-criticism. So many responses are coming.
Okay.
So they say transcendentalism is an philosophical aspect, but romanticism is about sensational aspect of nature.
Yes, exactly. That response is
Feminism
also
is about
perfectly
the
right.
rights and opportunities of female, and ecofeminism is the analysis problems of nature as well as women. And there is another response, romanticism to eco-criticism. It analyzes some cases of contradictory trends and tendencies that can be traced in thought and
Okay.
literature of the Romantic period.
Okay.
And some responses, it's a journey from egocentric to ecocentric.
Okay,
And
fine.
this is a spiritual connection between humans and environment.
Yes.
Is eco-spirituality. They say
Yes.
it's what
When we take the third problem here, that is eco-criticism versus eco-spirituality. Eco-spirituality advocates to develop a kind of spiritual outlook to look into the problems of the ecosystem and the universe. It advocates to develop a kind of spiritual outlook. It adds the word the universe also. So that is that's a small difference which I see in these two terms. The fourth one, what is the difference between feminism and ecofeminism? Any responses?
Yes, already I told, I think so. Feminism is about rights and opportunities of female.
Okay.
There is a response from a participant. And ecofeminism analyzes problems of nature as well as women. They have responded
Yes,
like
exactly. That the answer for the last question is perfectly right.
eco-criticism points out of the negativity of nature, and another
Yes.
one is spirituality of man as whole. And people say ecofeminism relates to women with nature.
Yes, exactly. So when I began my presentation, I said there are two aims. My presentation has got two aims. One is to demonstrate how to teach literary theories. Now, when we teach literary theories, we just focus on the theory which is being taught. Now, if you're going to teach eco-criticism, we just focus on eco-criticism and we don't correlate with other theories. So that is what is lacking in our teaching methodologies. When we talk about eco-criticism, we need to tell how it started. We took a flashback and then came back to eco-criticism. And then we talked about other branches that are popping out from eco-criticism, like eco-spirituality, biopolitics, and other things. So I think the first aim has been accomplished. The second aim is to bring in a kind of critical thinking and research insights. Now, we talked about so many poems. I compared and analyzed so many poems. That is what is required right now. When we are given a particular poem and when we are asked to teach in the class, we just should not focus and restrict our teaching with that particular poem. We need to compare with other poems, similar poems, and find out what are the differences, what are the similarities. And when we do that, we develop critical thinking and research insights amidst the students. I think I have done both these two things. And with this, I end my today's presentation.
Thank you, Vidya. It was wonderful presentation. Can we take some questions?
And again, I want it to be interactive. If you find better answers than mine from the participant sides, please read
Yes,
out. So
yes, we shall just look out some questions and it can be interactive too. People are responding more. I'll just read out the questions, okay? So much of questions, so much of appreciation to you. We can see it was a beautiful presentation, wonderful deliberation, excellent session. Okay, I'll just take some few questions here. You can see the chat box, no? Messages are flowing.
Yeah, I didn't open the chat box because I thought it will disturb
Okay, fine,
my
fine, fine.
presentation. Actually, before they could throw questions, I have thrown questions on them. That's what I feel.
So how biopolitics and eco-criticism is related? A question posed by Dr. G. Ghosh.
Ecocriticism?
How is biopolitics and eco-criticism related?
Pardon?
There is a question regarding how is biopolitics and eco-criticism related?
Ma'am, you are not audible.
Dr. Vidya, you can unmute your mic. You can unmute your mic and speak.
Ma'am, your mic is muted.
Can you unmute your mic? Yes. I'm asking the resource person. Can you unmute your mic?
Vidya ma'am, please unmute your mic.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible now.
Yes.
Yes. Now she's audible.
How?
How is biopolitics and eco-criticism related? There was a question.
How these two things are related.
Yes.
See, biopolitics is, as I told you, the impact of society and the political system. These two forces, they have some impact on the human life. And in eco-criticism, we do talk about human beings. Here also, we are talking about human life. In biopolitics also, we are talking about the impact of the society and the political system over human life. And eco-criticism also talks about human life. We don't exclude human beings when we talk about eco-criticism. I think that's how it is connected. Though they seem to be different, they are related in this way. Human beings, here also we talk about human life. Here also we talk about human life.
Okay. Can you shed light on the effect of pandemic on the environment?
Yes, eco-spirituality, as I told you, we are connected with everyone. All living things, non-living things, everything in this universe is interconnected. And it is a beautiful example, or it is the right, COVID-19 has proved it. It came from China and it is spreading across the world. It shows that we all are connected.
So do the values expressed in literary texts express ecological wisdom and an environmental ethic of our troubled times?
Can you just repeat the question?
Do the values expressed in literary text express ecological wisdom and an environmental ethic for our troubled times?
Yes, of course. They do. I give so
How
many
can we
examples.
use another question? Oh, let's continue.
I gave you so many examples now.
Okay. How can we use eco-critical theories to study our traditional folk tales and stories?
Cocktails and stories. Okay. See, when I spoke about eco-criticism, what is the definition of the person who has asked this question? I explained to you or defined what is eco-criticism. Can you just repeat it? What is the definition I gave? It is the study of, let me go to that slide.
Yes, yes, yes.
This is the definition it gives, isn't it? What is the question? What was the question?
Do the values expressed in literary text express ecological wisdom and an environmental ethic forward troubled times? And another question, does the eco-critical theories to study our traditional folk tales and stories, how can we use that?
Eco-criticism. See, eco-criticism, as I told you, it is the study of relationship between literature and environment. Wherever you find this relationship, you can apply eco-criticism, eco-critical theories. In folktales, definitely, you will find this kind of relationship. When you find this kind of relationship, immediately you can apply this theory over there. Can we move on to the next question? Have I answered this?
Questions are flowing. Questions are flowing.
Yeah.
Can you name some novels that you can be interpreted with the eco-critical point of view?
Eco-critical.
One of
Eco-criticism, you can choose Shalimar the Clown, the best example. You can choose Ruskin Burns stories, short stories are there. Tagore's short stories are there.
Okay, they have also mentioned that too. Can you comment on COVID-19 lockdown and environmental changes? Here is a question.
Environmental?
Environmental changes. Can you comment on COVID-19 lockdown and environmental changes? So
Yes, after this COVID-19, we have come to a kind of realization that we all are connected. And just thinking about our welfare is not enough. We need to think about others' welfare. If you want to live comfortably, you need to think about others' welfare also. That is what eco-spirituality advocates. We all are interconnected. So this kind of realization, this present situation has made us to realize.
They're asking for recent trends and research on this topic. What is the recent trend? This topic which we are discussing, what is the recent trends and research on this topic?
Eco-criticism has, from eco-criticism, there are many other branches popping out. The latest one is biopolitics. Biopolitics, as I told you, it has got many definitions. If you take up
yes, related to that, there is also again another question. So can you differentiate biopolitics and politics? And apart from Tagore, who else can be listed as biopolitical literarian? So they're asking a question on that. Related to that, same recent trends. Biopolitical literarian. So they want a difference between biopolitics and politics.
So
and apart from Tagore, who can be listed out?
Biopolitics is the study of the impact of the society as well as the political system over the lives of the citizens. We have society as well as, on the other hand, the political system. Political system formulates certain rules and regulation schemes, and that has impact on the lives of the people. On the other hand, the society as a whole also has some kind of influence or impact on the public. So biopolitics studies this. Politics is totally different. It doesn't study about the impact of the society on the human life. It excludes that. That's what I believe. Any other questions?
Yeah, questions are more, but due to time constraint, we can just end
See,
the session.
biopolitics, I have taken
Thank you,
only
Dr.
one,
Vidya. It was a
only one
wonderful
definition.
deliberation. We'll go for a formal.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Can continue.
Yes, I have taken only one definition. There are so many definitions you will find for biopolitics because it is a new stream, that is new theory that is coming up. It is very difficult to completely define biopolitics right now. There are so many new definitions coming up. I have just taken only one such definition to explain what is biopolitics. You can explore all the definitions. You'll find lots and lots of definitions, and it is a new theory that is coming up. So it is very difficult to concretely define this particular term at this stage.
Okay. Still, questions are flowing. Okay. So now,
Yes, ma'am.
yes.
Okay.
Can we end the session?
Yes, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Okay. Okay. That was surely a value-adding speech, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your immense knowledge with us. Thank you, ma'am. I think let's end this session with vote of thanks. May I now request Mrs. S. Jyotishwari, Assistant Professor of English, to propose vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, all. It's my immense pleasure to deliver vote of thanks for this webinar. First of all, I would like to express my hearty thanks to our Secretary, Principal, IQAC Coordinator, and I would like to express my gratitude to our HOD ma'am, Organizing Secretary, Coordinator, and Student Coordinator. And then I would like to extend my thanks to our faculty members, participants, and dear students. And I would like to convey my special thanks to our respected and most distinguished resource person, Dr. V.V.VIDYA ma'am, for making the session marvelous. We all enriched from your lecture by taking the quotes. Nature is omnipresent in literature as in life. And you initiate the session by questions like, what is nature for an eco-critic? It stimulates our curiosity to come miles with you, ma'am. The way you explain about the treatment of nature by Elizabethan and romantic poets and ecofeminism and eco-spirituality makes the session more interesting, ma'am. And your explanation about urban natural roosting, biopolitics, and biopower, which is very useful for us, ma'am. And thank you, ma'am, for your intriguing lecture. And once again, I thank all for your cordial cooperation. And thank you so much.
Thanks to all of you also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. I think it's time to end our session. So, participants, yes, ma'am.
So that we can wait, just people can fill their attendance form,
Yes,
whoever
ma'am.
is in the platform. We will just
Okay,
give their
ma'am, sure.
time to them so
Okay,
they can submit their attendance form for session 1.
Okay,
right?
ma'am. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So we thank all the participants who have joined the session 1. So we request all of you to join by 2:15 p.m. for the second session. So we will post the link in the group and in the Telegram groups. So we request all you to join promptly at 2:15 p.m. for the second session. So now you can just submit your attendance form for the first session. Thank you.
inside. He thought at least he can relieve whatever he has, some money he had, and he
How we can submit our attendance? How we can submit our attendance?
The link is in chat section, sir. So kindly refer it.
That section with Sutha.
Manu, resend the link again in the chat box. So people are asking no. So the remaining participants can note down. Link is there. You can fill it and submit it for the first session.
Correct.